a major move in Washington, D.C., the Trump administration has announced a sweeping review of all refugees admitted to the United States during President Joe Biden's term. So why the review now and what happens next? Let's connect the dots. The directive was formalized in a memo signed by Joseph Ed Lowe, Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. It demands a comprehensive re-examination and re-interview of all refugees admitted between January 20, 2021 and February 20, 2025. Those investigations and re-interviews would focus on determining whether those individuals met the definition of a refugee when they entered the US and whether there are any legal barriers that would make them ineligible to become permanent residents of the US. The memo also places an indefinite hold on all pending applications for green cards or permanent residency filed by refugees allowed into the country during that time frame. Under US law, refugees are eligible for permanent residency 1 year after being admitted. Ed Lowe noted that applicants cannot appeal any denials of their green card cases. US officials expressed concern that the Biden administration prioritized speed and volume in admissions over detailed vetting and thorough interviews. They say the review is aimed at ensuring national security and verifying the integrity of vetting processes. But critics call it a political move that could once again upend thousands of lives. For nearly 4 years under Joe Biden, the United States reopened its doors to refugees from war-torn countries. Between 2021 and 2025, well over 180,000 refugees and close to 200,000 refugees were settled across the country, according to the U.S. Office of Refugee Resettlement. Now, that entire population is under scrutiny. Officials from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security claim the vetting system under Biden was relaxed, especially during evacuations from Afghanistan and humanitarian admissions from countries like Ukraine, Syria, and Sudan. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin made this statement. The Biden administration's reckless approach undermined the integrity of our immigration system and jeopardized the safety and security of the American people. Corrective action is now being taken to ensure those who are present in the United States deserve to be here. The review will recheck refugee files, travel histories, security clearances, and resettlement documentation. It's one of the most extensive immigration audits in recent American history. Refugees, men, women, and children who came seeking safety now face new uncertainty. Advocates say the announcement has already sparked fear in communities across several states in the US. Many have built new lives, they're working in factories, studying in colleges, and opening small businesses. But now, the legal status could be reviewed and possibly revoked. Let's look at the numbers now. During Donald Trump's first term, the refugee cap dropped to just 15,000 in 2020. This was the lowest since the refugee program's inception in 1980. It shows his hardline stance on immigration. But Joe Biden reversed that. He raised the cap to 125,000 a year by 2023. Welcoming those fleeing some of the world's most dangerous conflicts. By the end of his term, between 180,000 and 200,000 refugees had arrived, mostly from Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Syria, and Myanmar. Texas, California, and New York hosted the largest groups. Now, the Trump administration says it wants to verify every single case. It has also set a record low cap of just 7,500 for fiscal year 2026. It is focusing on refugee resettlement, primarily of white South Africans, a controversial policy move that critics say reflects political favoritism over humanitarian need. Reports say the audit will run in 3 phases: a detailed audit of documents, rechecking security clearances, and legal hearings to confirm or revoke refugee status. Refugees who pass the review will keep their permanent residency rights, but those found not to meet the legal criteria may lose their status and be subject to deportation. According to the memo, those losing refugee status will have limited appeal rights, and while removal proceedings allow court challenges, the uncertainty looms large. So the stakes are high for Biden-era refugees. Legal experts say revoking refugee status is not simple. US law allows it only if the person was found to have lied about their identity, committed serious crimes, or posed security threats. But proving such claims can take years. The last major review of refugee admissions after 9/11 took more than 2 years and affected over 25,000 individuals. Under US law, refugee status is granted to the most vulnerable populations fleeing persecution for reasons including race, religion, political opinion, national origin, and/or membership in a particular social group. The World Relief Organization says they are deeply grieved by this decision, which they say will inevitably generate alarm among many individuals who will fear being returned to their home countries. Mile Green, the president and CEO of World Relief, says it is a moral and ethical betrayal of due process at a time when the Trump administration is attempting to lower the standard for refugee admissions to include Afrikaners and others who do not meet the legal standard of a well-founded fear of persecution that past refugees have been required to meet. Besides refugee advocates, Democrats too have criticized the sharp downsizing of the refugee program. In one voice, they say that the Trump administration has blocked refugees who are vetted, face persecution in their home countries, and who would contribute to the US economically. Refugee advocacy groups such as the International Rescue Committee and HIAS have strongly condemned the policy. Mark Hetfield, the president of HIAS, a refugee resettlement organization, said, "Just the threat of this is unspeakably cruel. To threaten refugees with taking away their status would be re-traumatizing and a vicious misuse of taxpayer money." Across the country, refugee assistance organizations are bracing for a new wave of confusion. The International Rescue Committee says it has received thousands of calls within hours of the announcement. Their hotline for legal aid reportedly crashed twice in one afternoon. State officials in Minnesota, Michigan, and Illinois say they are still waiting for federal guidance. During his first term, Trump's immigration record was marked by bans and sharp reductions in refugee admissions. His America First approach aimed to limit migration from countries seen as security threats. The refugee program, established in 1980, saw some of its toughest restrictions ever under his watch. Immigration analysts say the move could have far-reaching effects beyond security. It might delay pending refugee applications from other parts of the world, including Gaza, Sudan, and Myanmar. Humanitarian groups warn that resettlement agencies, already stretched thin, could face more strain. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has urged Washington to maintain predictability and humanity in refugee policy. So what happens next? Homeland Security has 90 days to report findings from Phase 1. The review will likely continue through most of next year. Congressional hearings are already being planned by both parties to assess its impact. And the human stories of uncertainty, fear, and hope will continue to unfold across communities. In towns from Detroit to Dallas, refugees who thought they'd finally found peace are watching the news closely. Some worry they'll lose everything again. Others believe the system will stand up to scrutiny. For many refugees, the American dream is fragile. The review threatens more than legal papers. It challenges hope, stability, and the promise of a new life. The Trump administration calls it a step towards stronger security, but opponents call it an assault on compassion. Either way, for nearly 200,000 people, it means another test of paperwork, of patience, and of faith in the American promise. After lying silent for nearly 12,000 years, a volcano in northeastern Ethiopia has suddenly woken up. On November 23rd, the Haile Gubi volcano erupted, its first known eruption in thousands of years. But what made headlines around the world was not flowing rivers of lava. It was the massive dark plume of ash that shot thousands of feet into the sky and traveled across continents, even reaching cities as far away as India's capital, Delhi. This rare and powerful eruption has disrupted flights and raised questions about volcanic monitoring. The incident shows the world just how connected our planet's systems really are. First, understand the location. Haile Gubi sits in the Ethiopia's Afar region, a remote desert area where two tectonic plates slowly pull apart. It rises about 500 meters above the landscape and lies close to the well-known Eta El volcanic range. According to the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, Ethiopia has around 58 known volcanoes, and 43 of them, including Haile Gubi, have not erupted during the entire Holocene period, which began nearly 12,000 years ago. Because this volcano had not shown any clear activity in recorded history, many scientists believed it was dormant, or perhaps even extinct. This is why the eruption came as a surprise. There were no confirmed signs like increased ground heat, swelling of land, rising steam, or small earthquakes. These are the signals that usually help experts predict volcanic activity.
Volcanic eruption is not new in the Afar in general, but for this specific volcano, Haile Gubi, we never had any record at all. So a volcano will be called active if it erupts in the last 10,000 years. So there is no record at all for this volcanic eruption, and to classify it as a Holocene volcano. That's because either it is ended, it is inactive, or maybe it's so remote in the Afar deserts that probably it might have some activity in the past, but never noticed or never recorded.
Now let's understand why this eruption looked different. Every volcano behaves differently based on what lies beneath it. The character of an eruption is shaped mainly by two things. First, how sticky the magma is, and second, how much gas is trapped inside it. If the magma is low in silica, it becomes runny. In such cases, gases can escape easily. These eruptions are gentler. Lava flows out quietly, like what we often see in Hawaii. But if magma is rich in silica, it becomes thick and sticky. Gas stays trapped inside, building pressure like a sealed bottle being shaken. When it bursts, the explosion sends ash, smoke, and fragmented rock high into the air. Haile Gubi's eruption was the explosive kind. Instead of glowing lava, it released a massive column of fine ash and gaseous material. Scientists call it volcanic ash plume. This plume rose to heights of 10 to 12 kilometers, exactly where commercial aircraft fly. Once the volcano erupted, strong eastward winds took over. They carried the ash from Ethiopia across the Red Sea, then over to Yemen, Oman, Pakistan, India, and even up to parts of China. This is extremely rare. Only a handful of eruptions in modern history have spread ash so widely. But when it happens, air travel becomes immediately vulnerable. Because the ash was drifting at altitudes of 8.5 to 15 kilometers above sea level, it crossed the same routes used by hundreds of international flights every day. India's aviation regulator, DGCA, quickly issued warnings. Several flights were cancelled, delayed, or rerouted, with airlines told to strictly avoid affected areas. Pilots were asked to report any unusual engine behavior, smells, or signs of contamination. Now let's understand why volcanic ash is dangerous for aircraft. Volcanic ash may look like smoke, but it is much more dangerous. It is made of tiny, sharp particles of rock and glass. These particles are light enough to float in the air, yet abrasive enough to damage aircraft systems. When ash enters a jet engine, the intense heat can melt into glassy material that sticks to engine parts, choking airflow. The ash can scratch cockpit windows. This reduces visibility and makes landing unsafe. Ash can disrupt sensors and instruments and can interfere with readings. Ash also contaminates airports. Ash settling on runways reduces visibility and makes operations risky. Because of these dangers, experts say airlines cannot afford to take chances.
This is always obvious, by the way. If there is a volcanic eruption in the flight route of airlines, it can be dangerous for the aircraft because there's combustion in the air. The airplane takes oxygen or air to combust its fuel and for the safety of the passengers. So you have to advise. You shouldn't take a risk in whatever the amount could be.
Aviation authorities classify ash contamination into 3 levels: low, medium, and high. But in this case, the exact level was not immediately known. Measuring ash concentration requires advanced deployment of sensors and instruments, something impossible during a sudden and unexpected eruption like this one. This was not just about aircraft safety. Volcanic ash can also temporarily affect satellite communication, which is essential for modern navigation systems. The response showed how even a single volcanic eruption, thousands of kilometers away, can disrupt global aviation within hours. The Afar region is one of Earth's most active geological zones, where tectonic plates slowly tear apart the continent. Studying this eruption may offer new insights into how ancient volcanoes behave and how future eruptions can be predicted with better accuracy. That's all in this edition of Connecting the Dots. We will see you next week with more raging issues. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us in the Delhi newsroom. This is Munmun Bhattacharya signing off. Take care and stay safe.